Hi, good morning everyone and welcome back. So I have to get into this video very quickly because I have a lot to talk about with you guys. And this video is actually in response to my first video that I made on what the hell is MGTOW. See, I got the name pronunciation correct because I didn't know what it was at first. Now I will be eating my fruit, so y'all excuse me for eating my breakfast. I was just checking the time, and I don't even think it's 10 o'clock over here on the West Coast just yet. It's like, what, 9:41, but hey, I'm feeling rejuvenated. I had a great night's sleep, as always. I always sleep good because sleep is just so important to one's health, right? So I love that I sleep well, and I love the fact that when I sleep I dream. But this video is not about my dreams. This video is actually about the response to my first video that I made on MGTOW. I feel so proud of myself that I'm able to say it. MGTOW. MGTOW. It sounds like something like out of London, out of England. Toe. Something very fancy. Toe. I have to use humor with this video because I understand this video topic is very sensitive, right? It's just like talking about any other social issue that we experience, you know, in today's society. Like, things are very triggering. Topics can be very triggering. People have all kinds of emotional reactions to different topic discussions, and I want to be sensitive to that. I want to be sensitive to people's sensitivities. I want to just basically take care, you know, of people in a sense where I'm not being offensive directly. Like, I'm not intentionally trying to be offensive with my words, and I want to just take care and be responsible about it. I should have gotten another napkin to freaking clean my hands after I'm done. I didn't. And I don't want to get up. But feel free, you guys who are watching, to comment as we go along on this video. Oh, I just made a mess. Okay. Feel free to comment, you guys, as we go along. I'm glad today is President's Day. I know some of you guys are working, but guess what? Your girl is off work today. When I mean work, I say, you know, I call work my practicum, but it's really not work. It's just, it's work, but it's not work, you know. It's training. As you guys may or may not know, that I am in my third year, actually finishing my third year of a PhD program in clinical psychology. So with that, I do see clients as part of the training. And we're off today. It's Monday. It's President's Day. Happy President's Day, everyone. But yes, I do want to be very careful about my words and my approach, and especially seeing that the response that I've gotten on my first video about this topic, I realized, like, people, they have some very strong emotions attached to this, you know, because this is a real deal for a lot of men. This is a real issue that impacts a lot of men. And even when I made my first video, I think I was even careful to go in my approach and go about it, you know, because y'all know I can be very strong in my opinions, right? But I think I have to be careful, you know, in what I say. But no matter how much care you take in your words, especially like if you're a vlogger like myself, people are going to take offense to it. People, you know, because they come with their own baggage. They come with their own emotional triggers that you really have no control over, you know. So I just have to put this disclaimer out there that this video, we're going to be talking about some very sensitive things. And hi, Marte. So I hope that you guys can be more mature with this video topic than you were last time, because I think people, they didn't get why I made it. And I think people assume that I made it to attack men or to bash men, and I'm like, that's not why I made this video. I'm not a male hater. I love men. Are you crazy? I'm not here to bash men. But I do understand that this video apparently is going to attract the attention of men who are just fed up with women. So if you're a man who subscribes to MGTOW and you're just at the point where you are fed up with women, I can say that I can be mature enough to say, hey, I apologize. I apologize for all women who have hurt you. I don't think that's going to erase your pain, your hurt, your anger, your bitterness. Because I'm sure that you're still going to comment on my video. And you're still going to say the things that you said. And we're going to get into some of the things that were said that were left on my video. And I'm looking like, what in the hell? Marte, I know you don't know what it is. So MGTOW basically, that's a pronunciation. Excuse me, guys. That's a pronunciation of a word that it's an acronym basically, but they made it like a word so you can, I guess, pronounce it as MGTOW. I was, I guess, ignorant initially of what it meant, right, and how to pronounce it. So I was saying MGTOW, but it's not MGTOW. It's MGTOW. It's an acronym that stands for Men Going Their Own Way. And it seems like this big new thing, like, oh my gosh, men are not going their own way. But when you think about it, people, men and women, have been going their own way in response to failed relationships. So this is not necessarily nothing new. I think the name itself is what's new, you know, and is what's getting people all in a frenzy. Like myself, when I saw it, I was like, what? What is this? This is a new movement? We have so many movements going on. So it's interesting. It's been 4 days since I actually created my first video on MGTOW. And that was actually on Valentine's Day. And I felt that, number one, I didn't know what it was about. Because I saw someone had commented with the hashtag, women like you, on one of my videos actually. Women like you are the reason why men, you know, are MGTOW, hashtag MGTOW. And I'm like, men are hashtag MGTOW. And I had to Google it, and I found out that it meant men are going their own way, basically. That's what he was trying to say. And I'm like, first of all, I'm the reason? Like, you give me that much power to say that Danielle is the reason why all of these men are going, I don't even know you guys, so don't put that much blame on me. Like, you guys give, I think, women way too much power, and I'm going to talk about that because I really think it's about power, the power dynamic between men and women, and men ultimately feel disempowered. So that's basically why I initially created the video 4 days ago, was in response to a comment that was left, and I had to Google it, and I was just like, okay, so I'm not the only one, because Marte just says, is this some gay stuff? Which I'm going to get into that. Based on the responses that I got, it's like I said, that was like my initial reaction, and it's important that I guess we clarify some things. That's why I wanted to do this video, because I'm going to really get into it, and I'm glad that you have questions about it, because I think that's where people's mind initially first goes. Like, okay, if a man is saying he's down with women, right, then what's the alternative? The alternative would be other men, right? But I got corrected. I stood corrected. In my video, on the video that I made, the comments, okay, you guys got to go see those comments. I was sharing the video on my Facebook page so you guys can see what's happening on YouTube. Y'all think it go down on Facebook, but it really goes down on YouTube, you guys. So I shared the video, and it was titled, What the Hell WTH is MGTOW? And I posted the link, and y'all, that video went viral. It took me by surprise, because I didn't intend for the video to go viral. And it's interesting how men, the MGTOW men, right, they came for me in the video, and they were like, oh, you're just this lonely, bitter woman who's just beating for attention. I'm like, I get enough attention in my real life. I don't need attention from you guys, especially not that kind of attention you guys are talking about. And it makes no sense that I would want attention from men who don't want to be with women. Like, what? I mean, think about it. If a woman was seriously trying to get attention, like in terms of romantic attention, right? it doesn't make any sense for a woman to try to pursue a man that doesn't want her. I have no interest in men that have no interest in women. That's not my, I want a man who wants a woman, you know? So, and on top of that, like, I think this is part of men kind of feeding their own ego to assume that, oh, women are just so desperate and they need us, so I want to get into all of this, you guys. I'm going to get into all, but it's a part of feeding your ego, I think, to say, oh, you're just desperate, you need us, and I mean, granted, yes, from an intrinsic sense, from a natural sense, women and men both need each other, right? I mean, that's how we are here today. You and I wouldn't be here if men and women didn't need each other. So, to answer that question, but yeah, I just had a genuine interest, and granted, like I said, that I am a PhD student. I don't think you guys quite understand what that means. It's like I chose the PhD route because I am interested in philosophizing. I'm interested in philosophy. I'm interested in looking at different ideas, and my concentration is clinical psychology. But that's not necessarily my only interest, like when it comes to philosophy, philosophical ideas. Like I love to explore different perspectives, especially as it relates to the human race. I like talking about topics like this. Like this really gets my wheels going. It's very stimulating. So that's why I made it. But interesting enough though, the response to my video, there are actually people who want me to debate. I'm not here to debate. I'm not here to attack. Like maybe it comes off as if I'm here to attack, right? Because I think previously, and like I said, I'm kind of still new to this, but I've learned a lot based on the comments that were left. But what I can gather is that there are women, I guess, who have responded to MGTOW, and maybe they're attacking men, right? That's not in my nature. I don't gain anything by attacking a man. What do I gain? I'm not interested in attacking people. I'm interested in understanding people. And that's the only reason why I created this video. It's just for understanding and to reach out to you guys, to connect, you know, to have a decent conversation, you know, a conversation about this topic that apparently is an issue. It's affecting men, and I feel concerned about it. Like it makes me wonder, it makes me feel concerned. So my video did go viral. It's still going viral. I'm like, damn, the response was overwhelming at first because I was like, why is my phone blowing up? Number one, I did not anticipate it. And there is this assumption, and I have to address some of the things, the comments that you guys had left. So basically, I'm kind of doing that now, just addressing some of the comments that were left in response to my video. But people were saying that, oh, she just put MGTOW in her title because she knew that it was a trending topic. How do I know it's a trending topic? I don't even know what MGTOW is. And even when I Googled it, it didn't seem like it was a trending topic. It didn't seem like it was just, oh, people got a whole lot of hits on their videos that they're talking about. I didn't get that impression. I still don't get that impression. So I that's not why I created the video. Like I said, I created it in response to a comment that was left on my video, and I was just genuinely interested and genuinely concerned about what's happening between men and women. Because I mean, yes, it impacts me, I guess, on a personal level somewhat, but I think it really impacts my understanding of men. I mean, you guys know that I'm trained to become a clinical psychologist. Like, I work as a therapist. Most of my caseload is men. Like, I work with men. So yes, it's important to be able to understand what's happening in a social context when it comes to conceptualizing individual problems on a psychological level. It's important to understand things sociologically, to understand what's happening on an individual and interpersonal level. That's the framework in which I work from. So for you guys who are wondering, like, okay, what's her interest in MGTOW? I work with people. That's my interest. And some things I have to point out, some of the things that I noticed that really stood out to me about the response was immediately I stood corrected. Not only just on the pronunciation of this name, because I was calling it MGTOW. and they corrected me and say it's MGTOW. And I asked for people to correct me. I asked for people to comment, to inform me about this lifestyle. Some people are like, oh, just go Google it. Yes, I can Google it, but I feel like it's better when I have real people that are in front of me. I mean, virtually in front of me, that comment, that I could kind of be able to get an understanding from. And I thank you guys actually for the time that you've taken to explain it. Like I said on my YouTube channel, whether you guys explain it from a very bitter and angry position with hate-filled comments, or if you rather you explained it, you know, appropriately in a respectful manner, I appreciate all of the comments that were left. But one thing that I did notice is that there was some denial of it being a movement, because I was calling it a movement because I'm like, that's what it looks like. A movement basically is an organization of people who come together for a cause to mobilize change, in my mind. That's how I conceptualize a movement. And so I'm like, okay, all of these men are coming together around this idea, right? This issue that they have been experiencing, a very common issue, and they want to see things different. So I'm like, man, what is wrong with that? What is wrong with wanting to see a difference in your life, a difference in society, a difference in your reality? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with calling it a movement. So I'm curious to know, because when I post this video on YouTube, I know there are going to be people who comment, and I really want to know, what is the reservation about not calling it a movement? You prefer to call it a philosophy, and I get it. Movements usually start with philosophies. But I find that very interesting, the distinction that you guys are making. It's not a movement. That's like first and foremost, so they have to say. First, it's not a movement, it's a philosophy. And I get it. It really is something that's happening online. They call it the manosphere, right? It's so cute. The manosphere, they created like this virtual reality in a way of a society, that a space basically online, like they want to control this space online that is only for men. It's like a kind of, like I said, virtual reality. It's really a false reality. It's a fantasy, because it really doesn't exist necessarily in real life. I mean, it hasn't manifested itself. It hasn't translated into real life. Because granted, I made this video and people were coming at me left and right with all these attacks. And we're going to talk about some of the things that were said, right? Just going against, you know, the reason why I made the video. Still meant that I'm attacking men. And I'm like, it's interesting to see the difference that, okay, this is happening online, right? But when I step outside my door and I'm walking down the street, men aren't attacking me. I don't get attacked by men in real life and everyday life. Men, in fact, give me a lot of compliments. Like, I'm very much used to men seeing me. I mean, it's apparent. I consider myself a beautiful woman. Men see that I'm beautiful. And I get compliments left and right in real life, you know. So that's why I find it interesting how some men are like, oh, she's just doing it for attention. I get a lot of attention in real life, you guys. I don't have to create a video to get attention, especially a video on MGTOW. I mean, I get attention from other video topics. I don't need to create a video on MGTOW to get attention. Everything is not about getting attention, you guys. Some women actually get enough attention. Maybe you are starved for attention. You're just projecting. But yeah, I get compliments all the time. I get men hitting on me all the time, and it's sometimes, as a woman, it feels uneasy to reject a man. It's not like I want to reject men, you know, or I want to put a man down, or I mean, in their mind, they're being put down, but that's not my intention, you know. It's just, if a woman is not interested, she's not interested, so move on, you know. I think that sometimes men get stuck in, oh, she said no, or I couldn't get her phone number, so it kind of affects your self-esteem. and ultimately your self-worth. And come on, there's so many women out there. If anything, I feel like men have it easier. So it's interesting to see like men's perception of what's happening in our society, and they assume that they just have the bad end of the stick according to this philosophy, that they've been given the bad end of the stick. And I'm like, y'all actually got it good. So recognize your privileges that you have, your advantages that you have over women, because when you think about the ratio of available women to men, I think women always outnumber men. Like, seriously. Thank you. Thank you, Uche. Appreciate it. But, I mean, it's sad to hear men talk about that, though. As if like, they seem like they're losing hope, you guys. But I'm like, okay, back to the whole thing about denying that it's a movement. It's okay that it's, if you want to mobilize change, if you want to change laws, the things that they are hinting towards in terms of the tenets of this philosophy, it would make sense that the goal would be to bring about social change the status quo, and change laws. But I think it can be like reverse psychology in a way for men to say, okay, our goal is not to change laws, but when in actuality that's what they want to do. Because it's one thing to say, oh, okay, my goal is set out to change laws, right? And it's like, what if you're not able to change laws? And so it's like you fail. So I think it's easier to say, you know what, we're not even expecting anything out of this movement, right? We just want to create our own world, our own society, where we stand apart from women. And I think for them that's easier to do. That's more maybe attainable in their minds for them to do, so that they don't have to face rejection or a failure if they create an opposite goal of trying to change the laws surrounding this issue. Because it's much more difficult to change laws, But it's very difficult to create a whole society without women. That's why I'm like, what? A society without women? Okay. I think that's the reason why they say, oh, it's just an online thing. It's a manosphere. Because that's much more easy to attain than to create a real world where this exists. So the other thing is denial of being heard, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later in this video. Man, it's apparent that a lot of men have been hurt by women, have been scarred deeply by women, apparently. I kind of was shocked, no lie. I was shocked, and it's interesting, I think, the difference in real world interactions between men and women and online. And some people complain about online, right? And they talk bad about it, But I think sometimes online can be a safe place for some people. And apparently, when I created the video, my first video on what the hell is MGTOW, and I invited people to share their thoughts about it, I wanted to create a safe place. And granted, initially I was just like, what? Why are these people calling me a thought? Like, I was getting called names by some of the members, most of the members in this MGTOW. I call it a movement because y'all got all these hashtags and stuff, right? It very much feels like a movement. And I'm just like, whoa, what did I do to y'all? But then I think my initial mind was going to say, well, let me shut down the comment section. And I think I closed it for a very brief second. I did close the comment section for a very brief second. But then I say, no, they have something to say. And what they're saying, whether it stings on me or not, is very valuable. Whether I agree with it or not, whether it's offensive to me or not, the time that they're taking to make these comments, and the fact that it was so many men commenting, I'm just like, whoa. It was like, y'all, they still commenting. Like, they blow my shit up, y'all. Right now, like I said, it's been 4 days, and literally it's over 1,100 comments on that video. that's like, I'm like, whoa, it's amazing. I did not intend to get this kind of reaction, you guys, like, for real. Because I'm low-key, like, and I kind of like to be low-key online, you know. I mean, granted, yes, I have a following on Facebook, you know, and I have somewhat of a following on YouTube. You know, it's growing, but damn, you know how you like, you're not ready for it? Like, damn, y'all kind of like blew me, but I had to say, you know what, Danielle, it's okay. It's okay if men are angry, that they're lashing out, because apparently if they comment all of these angry and hate-filled comments, even if it's directed towards you, though they don't even know who you are, I don't know these men, they have something to say, and apparently they feel safe enough to say it. So I think that's the beauty in online, because I'm like, dude, I ain't never heard nothing like this from a man in real life. Like, are you serious? I mean, yes, in videos, men call women thoughts, right? But like directed to me, I'm like, I have never heard any such thing like that. Like, that took me by surprise, because usually my interaction with men is very positive in the real world. So now you have this online thing, and men can kind of hide behind profiles, fake profiles, especially on YouTube, and be able to say these things. I'm just like, wow, amazing. It is. It's a good thing, I think, that men feel safe enough to be themselves online, where I guess in real life that wouldn't stand a chance. I get why they don't want to make it a movement, because a movement requires action taken in real life, organization taken in real life, and I think the response to hear how these men, like some of the things that they say, if I was blown and I'm a therapist, and we generally as therapists take a non-judgmental standpoint of view. We've heard a lot of different stories, so it's almost like nothing really surprises us. But even if I was touched, right, by some of the things they were saying, I can see how they're being careful to not make it a movement to something that actually happens like in real life. You know, that's the difference between a philosophy, I think, partially anyway, and a movement, because a movement should start to get real. Should start to get very real. And then you have protests, you have marches, and it gets crazy. But I think that would be exciting. Like, could you imagine this manosphere coming out into the real world, where men actually have the courage to make it a real life thing outside of this virtual reality? Like, I think that would be amazing, because we have just look at the power of the women's rights movement and the Black Lives Matter movement and Black Power movement. Like, the energy that you feel when you are part of this in real life, like, it's just amazing. So amazing. I just imagine to see something like that manifest itself in the real world. I mean, I'm like, come on, guys, let's do it. Let's do it, you know? I mean, of course, I think what they fear is that, you know, you're going to have women that gonna come with their perspective, and it seems like men don't want to hear women's perspective. Like, they that hurt. So I'm going to talk about the hurt a little bit later in this video, but for you guys who are still wondering, like, what in the hell is MGTOW? Well, basically, it's a response. This is what I've gathered. It's a response to women's rights movement. How women have been given all these privileges, so to speak, as women. And sometimes women don't even feel like they have those privileges, right? But there are certain biases that they say that our society directs in favor towards women, where, especially as it relates to double standards in gender roles and issues with relating to like family court and custody cases, and this whole accusations of rape, men being falsely accused of rape. That's the reason why they created this. That's partially the reason why they created this men's movement. But I think the biggest thing, a theme that I've noticed in response to my video and all of those comments, because I didn't get a chance to read everybody's comment. That's way too many comments to read everybody's comment. But I did read some, and most of them I think that I've read, they're kind of saying the same thing, and it's really about this cost benefit analysis, this risk benefit analysis that men have become aware of. They realize that, and this is them, this is what they're saying, is that women fail this cost benefit analysis. They fail the risk benefit analysis, and saying that men actually can do better by themselves, basically. And being with a woman, they feel that what is there to gain except for child support, loss of custody, unfair treatment in family courts, being accused of rape, having to pay women, basically getting the short end of the stick when it comes to divorce situations, and when women are sucking men dry in divorce court. They feel like, what is there to gain, like being with women, and it's really our society. And that's why I say sometimes men, like, they're like, oh, you don't really understand. Yeah, this concept is really not that difficult to understand when you take into context the society in which we live. And the things that they're saying are true. The things that I've named, these did I say genocentric? Sorry, you guys. I'm in the process of doing a genogram, so genealogy is like all in the forefront of my brain. But it's gynocentric, you guys. Gynocentric biases that exist, that they say, in favor of women at the detriment of men. And they don't like it. And that's the real motivation for them wanting to step away from women, right? And when they say step away, they're talking about not even getting involved in like serious romantic relationships, not getting married, not even investing, because it's really an investment when you talk about a man and a woman coming together, right, and spending time and spending their life together. That is a major investment. Having a family, that's a major investment. They feel like they're losing and women are winning, so to speak, because the way that our society has evolved, with the women's rights movement. And with that movement, obviously, came laws, and it gave women this idea that they're equal to men. And not only that, but a lot of women feel like they have power over men. And it's like this power dynamic, right, where before men held the power, and then the women's rights movement came to try to equalize that power between men and women. And then with the change in the laws, it's like it's favoring women over men, and women, according to men, now have the upper hand in many aspects of life, which is leaving men at the bottom, and they feel like it's disempowering. And I think that that's the kind of what I want to kind of focus on in this video, because if a man feels disempowered, especially when his identity is based on power, how he's been socialized, how men have been socialized through the years to define manhood, is predicated on a hierarchy of power, having power over women. And if now this power has been taken away, they no longer feel like they're men. So the simple solution in a man's mind to that problem is to step away from women, to regain a sense of power. So I'm going to talk about that later. I'm kind of jumping ahead. But interesting enough, this whole cost-benefit analysis that men are making, they're saying they realize that women marry up. And this I find this to be very interesting because, no duh, I mean, it makes sense, right? That a woman would want a man who's financially stable, that can provide for her and the family. But from a man's perspective, like, wait a minute. If y'all are working, y'all got the same kind of job as we got. Granted, the pay ain't equal now. Women don't make as much money as men. And that's common knowledge. Y'all can check the stats on that. Men get paid more than women. So the playing field ain't quite equal yet, but yes, women, we are able to work the kind of most of the same jobs that men work. We are able to work when previously it wasn't like that. Women were the homemakers and men went out into the labor force and they worked and they brought home the bacon. And so now that women are making money, they feel like, I guess, women, we got our cake and we eating it too, you know. But I don't think that they've heard the other side. I don't even think that they considered the other side. And this is the reason why I think that it should be taken offline. Because it's like men just kind of want to be in their little bubble in the manosphere. And they don't want to hear what a woman has to say. But you're going to hear what this woman has to say. And it's not to attack you guys. But it's just to look at this issue from different perspectives, because we also have a voice. Just as much as men have a voice, we have a voice. And guess what? Your issues affect us just as much as our issues affect you guys. We live in this society together. So I feel like we can get through this issue together. And I think it'll be very beautiful to be able to take these conversations offline, which I'll talk about later. And we can have panel discussions between men and women, because this is something that needs to be brought to the forefront. Why hide it? Why say, oh, we're going to hide in a little bubble and we're just going to talk amongst ourselves and, you know, complain about the atrocities of women that they're making us feel like we ain't shit, basically. But women, we have our own. A lot of women feel overburdened, overworked. We work, and yet and still we're expected to come home and cook and clean. That's a lot. I feel like that's more than what you guys are expected to do, you know? I've had this conversation many a times. So this topic is not new to me. Especially being a 35-year-old woman on the dating scene and talking to African men who I've taken a liking to. And it excites me. Like, I like this. It really does. It excites me because I just like to take a step back and just look at society. And I think men have their argument as to why things should be 50-50 in a household. Like, they feel like, okay, why am I paying 70%? Or why am I even paying 100% towards the bills and the finances when women have their income? So they're like, women expect men to pay all this towards the bills, and then they just make all this money and keep it to themselves. Like, that's unfair in their mind. They feel like that's unfair, right? But no, that money that women make can be used towards vacations. It can be used towards food in the house. It can be used towards other expenses, you know. Not necessarily the mortgage, but I mean, people set up their finances in their household the way they feel is best. So I just think it's very interesting, because when I had a recent conversation with this African, I think he's from Nigeria, and he was telling me about the way his family is set up. And his mother and father are still married, I think, in Nigeria. They've probably been married like for over 30 years. And he was saying like what works for them and their household. And he said that it's not that it's split 50-50, but granted the woman is bringing in income. His mother, is more like 60-40, and it's not something that's necessarily written hard in stone. Like, oh, the woman has to pay 40%, the man has to pay 60%. And they actually bring out a calculator and do the math. Like, it's not really like that. But he said, generally speaking, like that's kind of like her contribution to the household in terms of financial contribution. And I'm like, okay, interesting. But I had to challenge him, you know. And just because, I think this is the issue, just because you are challenged in a conversation, like, don't take it personal, and don't be like, man, come on, chill out a little bit. But my thing is this, like, if a woman is paying 40%, but she still has, this is the thing, she still has to be the caretaker. She still has to take care of the children. How is that fair, you guys? Like, you guys who are watching. I want to say the caretaker, I mean in terms of the nurturer. Like, when the baby cries, who goes to change the baby diaper? Who goes to feed the baby? Who's expected to do the laundry in the house? The housekeeping, the cleaning? It's the woman. We all know that's a job in and of itself. You guys cannot acknowledge that being a homemaker cleaning the house and taking care of the children, that's a job, full-time job in and by itself. People hire nannies to fulfill that job because it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort and energy. So if a woman is out during the day, working a 9-to-5 job, just like a man, and still yet has to come home and take care of the child. Granted, yes, that's her responsibility, But I feel like if we're going to talk about equal contribution as it relates to finances, then there should be equal contribution as it relates to taking care. I mean, if y'all want to do the equal thing, split it 50-50 all the way down the middle, then let's keep that consistent across the board. To me, that would make sense, right? But naturally, that's not how it happens, because it's assumed that, women do a better job at nurturing the baby and feeding the baby and changing the baby diaper, and ain't nothing wrong with y'all hands. Men can be nurturers too. You can hold a bottle and feed a baby. You can change the baby's diaper. You can pick up a broom, pick up a mop, and clean. And like I said, I'm not saying this to be offensive, because I know a lot of y'all be kind of sensitive sometimes, and y'all go off, and I feel like we can have a mature conversation, a respectful conversation, without, you bitch this, or you thought this, and I'm gonna get into that in my next point. But I think that let's keep it fair. But to expect that burden on a woman, just like, hell, we going through our own shit too. So just as much as men feel like women fail the cost benefit or the risk benefit analysis, shit, y'all fail it too. How is it that women are benefiting from being with men other than the sperm that they provide, especially if they don't want to take care of the household financially? We're talking about what is there to gain. Let's ask that question for both men and women. What is there to gain? Now, granted, I'm all about procreation. I love the idea of family, staying together, working through issues, no matter what, thick and thin. My mother and father were married when they had me. They were together. They were together for 12 years. And then when I reached 12 years old, well, actually before it, longer than 12 years, but I would say 12 years, like in terms of when I became 12, then they separated. So, but they obviously were together before I came into the picture. And we just lived this happy life, happy family life. And so, yes, I think divorce can be hurtful. It can do damage to everybody in the family. But I get it. There's ways to still make things work, right? When the divorce happens. But it's not good for anybody involved. Men talk about, the money they gotta pay. But what about for the woman emotionally? We need each other. I have to admit that. And I think sometimes people with their egos, like, well, I don't need her. Or even women, I don't need him. We need each other. The man needs the wife needs the husband. Especially when you create a family together, you need each other. And then definitely the children need you. But I'm grateful and blessed to say that even though my mom and my dad had not even a legal separation, because they're still legally married. Like, we all share the same last name. But they had like a physical kind of separation. My dad was still very much in my life, and I ended up living with my mom for a couple years after their separation. Then I ended up going back to stay with my dad. So I had to balance the playing field, because I'm like, wait a minute, my mom. I think a lot of times women feel that they have the power, right? I'm gonna take my children with me, but I'm just as much as my dad's child as I am my mom's child. And I feel like, though I was young, and this is just me, you guys, and I don't know if other teenagers do the same thing, but for me, I feel like I have a right to choose who I want to stay with. So I understand my mom for 4 years, and I went back to stay with my dad for my remaining years of high school. And I feel like that's a decision that I should be able to make, not my mom. And it hurt her. It did. I have to put that in there because I think that it's relevant to the conversation. Because when I hear the responses of men to my video, and I hear men talk about the short end of the stick that they get when it comes to divorce and custody and family courts, like, I feel their pain. You know, I have a father, and my father, I remember him saying that his goal, like his wish, that was for my mom, even though they had their conflicts, right, and she wanted out of the marriage. My dad, he would have these conversations with me when I was a teenager, and even when I became an adult, and he was like, my wish was that your mom just stayed, and that she treated our relationship like we're brothers and sisters, just for the sake of being able to raise the children together. Like, my dad literally, he wanted my mom to stay, right? My mom was like, I ain't staying. You know, I'm out of here. You know? So, for men to come on my video and say, oh, you don't understand, you don't know. Dude, I'm a human being. We're all human beings. We all have our own stories, you know. That's just this little snippet of my story. And I actually wrote a book about my life called American Dreamer. It goes more into detail about the different things that I went through, you know, as the struggles I went through as a teenager. So for someone to say, I understand firsthand the pain that can result from divorce, right, and broken families. But I feel like this topic here, there's so many different aspects to it. It's so dynamic, and I don't know if there's an easy solution to this issue that we have here, where men are like, what the fuck, right? Because it's like, y'all got y'all issue, but women have their issues too. Women like, okay, wait a minute, y'all sitting up here leaving, y'all sleeping around with different women. Granted, it ain't all y'all, but women are like, shit, we feel kind of hurt too, you know? And so when you see a woman that's using the court as leverage because they have that right to do so, that's a way of how they can gain power over a man. Not to say it's right, but that's their way of gaining power, because apparently they feel disempowered, especially when they're not getting their needs met in the marriage or in their relationship. So y'all, it goes both ways. And when I say it's about power, it's all about power. So the whole thing about women marrying up, I'm like, what woman wants to be with a scrub? You know, like TLC made the song, no, I don't want your number, no. Women don't want scrubs. Granted, you got women that do take care of men, and they call it what, the hypergamy. I've learned new words from this, you guys. Thank you guys for this discussion. Hypergamy and hypogamy. So it's hypergamy and then hypogamy. Hypogamy is when women marry down, and then hypergamy is when women marry up, or they date up. And men look at it as, when women date up, it's like you're gold digging. They assume that, oh, you don't want me, you just want me for what I can provide for you. And I had this conversation last night. I just have to put this out there. I have no shortage of men who are interested in talking to me. Like, y'all should know that. I know my self-worth. I know what I bring to the table. So yes, I have different prospects of people that I'm dating. So don't just assume that, oh, I'm single, so I ain't got nobody, and I'm lonely and I'm bitter. Far from that. But I find it interesting. The dating scene can be very exciting because you just meet so many different people. And while I'm like having conversations with men over the phone, like, I have to be very careful. This is just my approach. So I may talk to different people over the phone, but it doesn't, I weed people out. You know, you have to take things slow. You have to make sure that, okay, who is this person, you know, before you even go to the whole next step of, you know, oh, we're together, you know, let alone sex. Sex is like way down the road. Well, we all got our needs, right? We all got our needs, but that's a whole nother story. So I have conversations with men. I listen to what they say, right? And I'm listening. And when I hear men, I had a conversation with an African man. He was just like, oh, I have to be careful because I I don't want to date a woman who wants to be with me because of my money. It's not even about me, right? This is just something that, a thought process that he had in his mind even before me. But he's just telling me his frame of mind. And he's like, yeah, I've been talking to men, you know. I'm talking to women, sorry guys. I've been talking to, you know, women that it just seems like all they want is money. Now, granted, this man, he lives in New York, right? And that's kind of like where my prospects are, because I mean, I have some people, men, I talk to in LA, but my preference is New York men. I'm moving back to New York when I finish my studies out here in LA. I just like New York men. They're more assertive. They know what they want. And a lot of New York men, I mean, they're family oriented. Believe it or not, a lot of New York men are very family oriented. So, but he's African, right? So he wasn't born in the US. So I think this is a challenge too, also when it comes to talking to dang, I didn't realize this video probably long as hell. Y'all gonna be like, damn, I can sit through it. Okay, I'm gonna hurry and go fast real quick. But so he's like he's from African, right? So I have to like set the context, because I think sometimes people just don't get it. I mean, even Americans don't get this. So you have to like bring it to their attention. I'm like, how can you be born and raised in America and not understand this concept? Not understand the context in which we live, because they're just like, why women want men that got money? Hello, this is America. I had to put it in very plain English. And this is not to be offensive, but I'm like, I get that you're not from America. You're from Africa. Things are different. The culture is different. When it comes to a woman having a baby, the tribal community comes together and they take care of the baby. I'm like, things are different in America, and the context is much different. So it may seem like, oh, women are just want you for your money. I'm like, dude, we live in America. I say that, I don't think it registers. So I have to break it down what that means when I say we live in America, because it's just not registering to people. America is a capitalistic society. Everything is about money here. Money is of importance, of very high importance. Everything costs money. It costs to live, and it's one of the most expensive countries to live in. It's expensive. So when you have women who are concerned about money, it's not so much that, oh, they don't want love or they're all about money, but that's important, because I had to break it down. I said, do you not know there are women who get pregnant by men who they fall in love with, right? They care about these men, they love these men, but they get pregnant, and oftentimes they get the short end of the stick because the man abandons the woman and now she has to take care of the child by herself. I say, in America, most women are left with that responsibility, because in America we have this ideology that every man is for himself. That includes women. Every man and woman for themselves. You have a baby, that's your responsibility. Even in African American community, though we have certain remnants of African culture in terms of, you know, the community sense, but I think most African Americans have adapted this individualistic perspective. So you will hear African American mothers tell their daughters, their pregnant daughters, you made your bed, now you lay in it. That means you are on your own. You get pregnant, that's your responsibility. Not to say that, okay, they may not know the grandmother, the mother of the mother who has this baby isn't gonna, you know, chip in here and there. She may, but no, that responsibility, it falls on the woman. Understand that. So when a woman gets pregnant by a man and he be like, bye-bye, because he has all these distractions, all these women out here throwing their pussy at him, right? And he decides he want to step out, which, hey, the choice is yours, man. You do what you want. But it can have on a woman and on a family. Because I've had this conversation before, right? When it comes to child support. And it's just like, y'all know the saying, it's cheaper to keep her. Now, granted, there's so many different variables, right? Some men say, well, you just don't understand. You know, I had to leave. Okay. In dire situations, things happen, right? But I feel like a lot of times We know why relationships end is because men sometimes make poor choices. And granted, I'm a woman, so I may have a bias, right? But that's just my perspective. That they have poor choices. And hey, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. If there are other reasons why you feel that men leave women or abandon women, because it's really not just leaving, but it's really an abandonment, then say so. Feel free to comment below. Feel free to state your case. This is a discussion, you guys. This ain't no debate. This ain't no argument. We ain't going toe to toe. We ain't doing all of that. We are discussing issues here, topics that impact both sexes. And so when men do that, right, and they abandon a woman, you leave a woman to fend for herself and the child. Like, that's a whole psychological, think about that. Like, I couldn't even imagine what that's like. I don't have kids, right? And that's why I'm very careful about who I choose to mate with, who I choose to get emotionally invested in, and all of that. And some people, oh, why you 35 and you still single? Dude, you gotta be careful. There are women out here who are in their 30s are still virgins, because you just gotta, looking at what's happening to other women. I learned from other women, other relationships, people in other relationships. I'm like, I just don't want that to be me. I don't want to be a woman who's left with kids to raise by myself, considering all this stuff that's happening. So yes, I do take precautions. I'm very careful when it comes to relationships. Like, I've been single for a while. My last relationship ended December 2017, and technically I kind of been single since then. Granted that I did kind of have a little moment in time, which was at the end of last year for a couple months when I was dating this guy from the Gambia in New York. But that was a very short period because we just had too many cultural differences, and we weren't able to kind of work through that. But outside of that, like, I've been single since December 2017, and I think I'm okay with that. It's like, being single kind of like it's a safe place to be. So when men say I don't understand why y'all kind of doing your own, I understand. You know, women have their way of kind of saying, you know what, we're gonna just focus on ourselves, focus on our careers, and do us. But that leads me into my next point about how there are many different variations of MGTOW. So I think that is a very important piece to highlight, because if not, then we make the mistake of assuming that all MGTOW men are made the same, and they're not. All MGTOW men are not the same. You can't generalize them. You can't put them in a box, because they're not. And I've learned that just based on the responses I've seen. Y'all may think that I ain't been paying attention to y'all comments that y'all left my video, but yeah, I've been paying attention. I realized, yes, just as not all women are the same, because I think the MGTOW men, you know, they have this perception of women. And that's why I'm like, what? When they start calling my video like, oh, you thought, you bitch, I'm like, okay, you probably been hurt. Apparently, you've been hurt by women in your life. And so you just taking that anger and hurt out on me because I am a representation of what has hurt you. I get that. But don't put that on me, you know? Don't put it on me. But I left my comment section open because I feel like it's very revealing to the world. I want the world to see men's pain. So you guys, when you finish watching this video, go to my channel on YouTube and check it out, Danny's World. Look at the video that I made on February 14th, Valentine's Day of 2019 this year. And the video is entitled, What the Hell is MGTOW? MGTOW. And I said WTH. What the hell is MGTOW? I'm like, what is this? So read the comments and you guys can see the intensity of emotions that men are projecting out onto me, a woman they don't know. And, you know, they're calling me thought. That's part of the move, which I want to kind of get into. They're talking about the different variations of MGTOW. But, yeah, you know, you'll see comments like, oh, you a thought, oh, you a bitch, or you're a nigger. You know, some of that is racism. So I even talked about that, too, in my description of my video, how their hatred towards women has been confounded with their hatred towards black people, you know, being that the person who made the video on MGTOW, I'm an African American woman, and so they're just letting out all the junk that they have inside of them. And I say, you know what? I can delete comments. I can close down a comment section, but I actually want to leave many of those comments up. I want the world to see the state in which men, because it's very revealing. I mean, if a researcher, which I am, but I don't have the time to do the research on this particular thing. I mean, I think it'll be great. It's a lot of grist for the mill, I think, for a researcher to just go to that video and look at the comments. There's so much data there. Like, there's a lot of data there, you know. So I think that's the reason why I left it up, because it's so informative. Just read the comments, you guys. Read the comments. Read what men have to say. And when you read it through the perspective of knowing that that's coming from a hurt place. Like, that's coming from their experiences, because they don't know me. So I can't take what they made about me personal. And I think some of the, I didn't say a lot, but some of the comments that people have made, they kind of twisted certain things that I've said, or they maybe misunderstood certain things that I've said to assume that I attacked men. So they feel like their perception of my video, and that they maybe feel attacked, their response is just to attack back, I guess. But I'm like, I didn't attack you. I just stated my perspective. If anything, I expressed concern and empathy for men. And I said very clearly, like I'm doing now, that I can understand why the need for such movement, which I'm going to talk about and get into that towards the end of this video. So I understand, trust and believe. I can understand, but that doesn't mean I have to agree with everything that you guys have posted. I don't agree. I just don't. And I'm going to tell you why. And yes, not all MGTOW men are created equal. And I think that there are different variations to MGTOW. So I think that there's a healthy group of men who have responded to these observations that they've made concerning the unfair treatment and the unfair position that men have in our society in relation to men. I think there's this healthy part and there's the unhealthy part. And you guys can go and look at those comments and read the comments. You can see which ones are coming from a healthy place and which ones are coming from an unhealthy place. So I'll go and talk about the healthy first, because I think that that's really most important. I think that it's easy to understand why men will want to go their own way, you know, because it's about self-preservation. The same thing, I even mentioned in my video before, so for you guys to say I don't understand, when I mentioned this before in the first video, about it's similar to the Black Lives Matter movement. And how, yes, there is a considerable number of black people, not just within the U.S., but globally, who kind of want to go our own way too, right? We have this idea of creating our own nation. You know, there's black nationalism, there is Pan-Africanism, right? All of that is saying is that we want to create our own. Whatever that needs to be done for African people must be done by African people, independent of the system. So I get it. I can relate. It's a different name, but it's kind of like it's the same concept. So for men to say, okay, they want to create their own, separate from this oppressive society that undermines men and that gives women these privileges, you know, to the detriment of men, at the expense of a man's survival and preservation. I get it. I understand that very easily, you know. I'm just saying, how feasible is that? And I've said the same thing for Pan-Africanists, you know, for Pan-Africanism, and for black nationalists who talk about this separatist movement of wanting to be apart from white people, right? And I get it, trust and believe. And sometimes I struggle with it because it's a very dynamic, very complex thing to try to conceptualize, because granted, we already live in a society that's integrated. So much of black survival depends on white and vice versa. We depend on each other. We're very much integrated. And y'all may think that I'm taking, a tangent, but this is all related, you guys, because we're talking about a parallel and processes that are happening as it relates to race and as it relates to sex and gender. Parallel processes happening at the same time, and they do intersect. And so I think it's important to talk about what's happening within a racial context and what's also happening within this gender context of our society. And is it really possible for men to create a society where women don't exist? Is that possible? Just like the whole idea about black people thinking that they can create a society where white people don't exist. And I had this, like I said, this is not new to me, you guys. The concept is not new. My previous boyfriend, who I dated, like I said, I broke up in December 2017. But that relationship lasted 3 years. And I met this guy in New York. He's from Brooklyn. And yes, we were deeply in love. Right? He's Jamaican. But he had a more extreme perspective when it comes to black issues, right? Race-related issues. And when we would have discussions about, okay, what's the solution, right? What's the solution for black people? We know the issue. We don't have to talk about what issues impact black people. We already know. What's the solution, right? And his solution was, and he's former military. I have to put that in there because I think that matters too. He's speaking from a militant perspective. And he said it without any hesitation. It was like, the solution is just to kill all white people. Not that he had a plan to kill white people, because I think some of y'all be quick to do shit when it ain't even that serious. It's not even at that point. But it was just speaking in terms of ideas. That was his idea, that, go kill all white people. That was the solution. And I was just like, that don't make any sense, Especially when you think about the issues that impact a human race, right? A group of people. It goes deeper than just skin color and skin tone. And granted, the issues that impact black people, right? Oppression, discrimination. It may be a byproduct of racism. And racism is predicated on color. And race is really a mindset. So to assume that, all white people are evil just based on the color of their skin, and all black people are just holy and magnificent and great and, pure because our skin, right? If you just go based on skin alone, right, and if that's your approach, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that you could actually have a war or black people could even start a war, we know this ain't happening, but we're just saying hypothetically, we're just having a conversation about it, where black people say, all right, we're going to kill all white people, right? If you have a certain skin, boom, we're going to kill you, right? That's dumb, because we know it's really about what's up in here. And we know that just because a person is white don't mean that they hate black people, or just because a person is black that, they're just this good black person, right? Because they have this skin, right? Like this saying goes, all skin folk ain't kin folk. White America is and has been way more dependent on the black race than the other way around. That's the reason Black Wall Street was destroyed. I get, proof of my point is documented throughout history. Matthew, you bring up a great point. A lot of black people endorse that same philosophy that, you know, we are the original people. White people came from us. Everything that there is to know about math, science, whatever, came from black people, right? Because we're the original. So that's one theoretical perspective. But granted, when we fast forward and we talk about our current society and who holds the power, not to say black people, we don't hold power, because I think we do have a special kind of power that we hold. And it's just for us to realize it. Not that all of us don't realize it, but looking at the state, I'm talking about America, because it looks different across the world in terms of the power that black people have. But looking at what's happening in America, and granted, yes, we are the numerical minority. And when it comes to who owns things in America, mostly is white people, right? And so that's what I mean by we are dependent upon them for, I mean, just from a practical sense, you guys. Not to say that we can't survive. We can survive, but you tell black people this: oh, get rid of everything that a white person owned, right? That a white person created. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. That would mean your lights. That would mean damn near everything. If you got from a white person, everything. You would have nothing. Even the clothes on your back, right? If we want to go pure black nationalism, right, to the extreme, then you wouldn't have anything left. Even your iPhone. You know, so I think sometimes it gets kind of tricky, because even I think about certain black leaders. I got to get back on topic, and I got to really wrap this video up. But I do think about black leaders who are very passionate about the cause, right? And they're really trying to mobilize change for the black community. And you're like, buy black and everything black and this and the other. But the phone that they're using to create these videos is not owned by black people. iPhone, Apple, come on. Do we really have to go there? The clothes on your back, you know? The internet, the PayPal service that you use. You wonder why you can't go but so far, and your YouTube channel gets shut down. I'm thinking about one particular person where his YouTube channel got shut down. Everything got shut down. Facebook, because he was preaching this Pan-Africanism, you know. And if white people control it, hello, that's what I mean by you're dependent upon white people. So to say that you're going to go off and create this new society where only black people exist and we can be self-sufficient, yes, ideally it sounds great, but come on, we have to think things through, y'all. Think it all the way out, you know. That's the whole point of having these kind of discussions, so we can see things from different perspectives. Sometimes people don't think it all. They're just like, oh, we're going to do this, and boom, it's going to work out. And you ain't thought that thing all the way through. Are they owners via outperforming us or having a 500 years? Yeah, we're not talking about how they got it. We're just talking about the reality, Matthew. Trust me, I'm with you on that. We ain't talking about, I think sometimes we get very defensive about, oh, well, they got it because, you know, slavery, they held us back. We know that part. I'm talking about the feasibility of this solution that black people have come up with of how we can survive, and the whole idea about it being independent of white people. And I'm just saying that how feasible is. What is that going to look like? Spell that out in terms that really make sense. Because you can have an idea, oh, we're going to just create our own society, but break that down. What is that? That's what I'm saying. I'm breaking it down. What does that look like? And back to the topic, black MGTOW men have this idea that, oh, we can go create a society without women. What does that look like? And they start to talk about artificial womb, right? That technology has made a way that men can procreate without women. Really? What does that really look like, though? What does that look like? You know? It's not realistic. Come on, y'all. MGTOW men. How likely is that to happen? Not to say men can't do it, but even one man even commented, he was honest enough to say that that's going to cost money. Can every man afford that? You know? I think anything is possible. Come on, y'all talking to a person that I believe anything is possible. If anybody believes that, it's me, you know. And sometimes I think, even with my ideologies and ideas, people like, I'm just so far left, right? Because they think I live in some fantasy world, especially when I start talking about polyandry. Just like, that ain't gonna happen. It's just, I believe anything is possible, but let's just be practical for a minute. So, yeah, I was saying that there's a healthy response. There's different variations of MGTOW men. They're the ones that are healthy, and I think a healthy MGTOW philosophy is that, okay, men kind of just want to step aside for a bit. They want to kind of take a break, step aside, work on themselves, better themselves, right? That's good, There have been times in my life where I say, you know what? I ain't dealing with men. Not that I'm turning gay. I think sometimes people think that. They're like, oh, well, what you gonna do? You ain't talking to men. What you gonna do? And I have my own history and I have my own experiences as it relates to that. But I mean, even when this happened, when I was very young, thinking like this. This is even talking about before the idea of marriage was even a reality for me. Like, I'm talking about 18 years old, where I was just like, I'm done with men, right? Yeah, right. Like, but in the moment, that's how you feel, right? Like, okay, you maybe had a bad relationship, you dated someone, it didn't work out, so now you're just done with all men, right? The person that hurts you, you think that all men are like that. Well, it's not necessarily true. So I can be honest enough to admit that. And I feel like when you can come to terms with what happened in your experience with a person from the opposite sex, right? And you can be able to look at it objectively and realistically, and you realize that, okay, this is not all men. All men aren't like this, because that's a very difficult space to be in. Same thing with black people. Yes, we know that there are racist white people, very evil people, right? Some, I'm not here to say all, but I even had this discussion on one of my videos, because someone was like, all white people are evil. They're the devil. And I said, I don't believe that. If I was to walk around believing that all white people are, like, what kind of reality is that? To really walk around and think every white person is out to get me. Every white person is out to kill me. Granted, I know that we all, whether black or white, feed into the system of white supremacy. We all play a role in it. But in terms of being the enemy, because that was a whole issue. That was a topic on one of my videos that, somebody said that white people are the enemy. The same thing was happening with the genders. Oh, all women are evil. I mean, read the comments, just by me making a video about MGTOW, just expressing my concern, these men who have been hurt by women in their lives have taken to comment on my video and to throw out their hate, they threw it up. I'll let them throw up on my video comment section. Like, just go ahead and throw up. I get it. You're hurt. You're bitter. But they denied it, and that's what concerns me, that how people, they deny their feelings. If you're hurt, you're hurt, but it's not easy for men to be hurt. And I think that speaks to the double standard in gender roles, gender expectations, really. That a man, can't be hurt. And so for so long, men have kept all these emotions bottled in. And what you see on that video that I made in the comment section, that is just them vomiting all of their hurt and their pain that's been kept in for so many years, because society said that men can't be hurt. They don't have emotion. They can't show emotion. You got to be strong, And for these men to say, I don't understand, dude, I'm a black woman. If anybody understands oppression, hello. If anybody understands what it means to feel invisible, or that you have to keep your emotions in, men are the only demographic of people whose emotions are suppressed. People whose emotions they have to hide. You can't express them. You only can show that you're strong. Same thing with black people. Hello. This is the same thing. Black women, we can't be angry. You get titled angry black woman. Anger is a natural everybody experiences anger, you know? We can't even be defensive. We can't even have a different perspective. Oh, you're being defensive. We get called out on it. So to say that I don't understand, that's the reason why y'all look at my first video on this topic that I made 4 days ago. You'll see that I talked about interaction I had with my supervisor, because I get it. This is all about humanity, you guys. Like, it's very, yes, it can be very frustrating to be in that position where you aren't allowed to be. Just be, you know? And I think part of the healing that comes into play is that we give people permission to just be angry. You have the right to be angry. Now, you don't have the right to sit up here and be calling somebody names, you know. You can be angry, but, you know, I think it's important to be mindful of it too. You know, it's not to say you can't be it, but just be aware of where you are when you are that way, you know. Be aware of how you are, you know. If you're angry, just have an awareness of it, because yes, it can get out of control where you are mistreating people who ain't got shit to do with why you're angry, you know. They may be a trigger for it, but the anger goes way deeper than that, because it's way out of proportion. That's how you know something go way deeper, right, than the current present interaction you may have with a person, because their reaction is way out of proportion to what you said. You know, you may just have made one statement or observation and they just go way off on the ledge with it, and you just like, well, damn. That's because they have a history, you know. It's more to the story that needs to be unfolded. So that, it makes perfect sense. But yeah, the healthy response, a healthy group of MGTOW men are the men who say, you know what, let's take a break, you know. We realize this is happening, so we want to kind of take a break. We want to develop this philosophy and talk about it in front of women. I think it's important to gain respect, to gain an understanding, you know, to regain the sense of self-worth. It's like when you withdraw yourself from someone who did not appreciate, that's sometimes the only way people come to appreciate your self-worth or your worth, is when you withdraw it from people, you know. But interesting, I just said that it was kind of like a slip where I said self-worth when I really meant to say worth, but that's the whole irony of it, that self-worth really is supposed to come from yourself, you know. But it can be shaped by external influences too. So how a man is treated in our society by men and women can shape his sense of identity and his sense of self-worth. There also another healthy response, I think it could be, but it's not until after you take a look within, because I think men, people altogether, when they're hurt and they have these bad situations and encounters, they automatically assume that it's the other person. They don't really take a look at themselves, and it's important that we all take a look at ourselves to see how we help create a certain situation. So, because if you don't, you're just going to recreate that same situation in another relationship. And so you have men who are saying, oh, well, we'll just date Asian women. We'll date non-American women. That's their solution to this problem that they're experiencing with American women, and not just American. It's not really American women. American women are just a byproduct of the society in which we live in, that has given these women certain privileges according to men, right? So is that really a solution though? Because granted, there is this global movement, you know, where it ain't just America. I mean, other countries are being influenced by your Western European ideologies. And so for you to think you can go to Europe or Asia or wherever you want to go, even Africa, you know, any place but America, and think that those women somehow, is going to be able to, you can create this fantasy with these women that life is just going to be all peaches and cream and things are going to, I don't think so, because those women are adapting within their culture, even though it's so-called foreign. They're adapting Western ideologies, and it's happening at a very rapid rate. It's happening at a very, very rapid. So I get what you guys are saying. That what you're saying is that you kind of want to go back to how things were when we were in a primitive society. I get that, because the way our modern society is just, it's diabolical, right? So I definitely understand where that's coming from, and I can relate, because I have my own perceptions and beliefs as it relates to how American men are versus, you know, even how African men are. It's a different culture. So maybe a difference, you planting yourself in a different environment, a different culture, can help change certain things. But I also think it's important that you take into context yourself and what you bring to the table, because if you have been hurt by women, right, and you haven't processed the hurt, you haven't dealt with the hurt, you haven't healed from it, then you're going to just take that same hurt, pain, bitterness in your next relationship with somebody else who ain't got nothing to do with it. And that definitely can hinder your progress. I think it's a good idea to explore different alternatives. So if it ain't working out for MGTOW men in America with these American women, right, in the context of this biased society that favors women at the detriment of men, then okay, it will make sense. Okay, let me see what my other alternatives are outside of America, right? That makes sense. But you also have to just be aware of yourself, because you'll bring that same baggage into another relationship, and it's going to create problems. Because these women, they're going to be like, why is this man, why does he have these preconceived notions about who I am? Sometimes I think men think they can distinguish, but the mind doesn't always make the distinction between, let's say, for example, an Asian woman, an American woman. Granted, your experience happened with an American woman. Sometimes the mind, it makes a generalization. It's something that happens on a subconscious level, that unless you're conscious and aware of it, it just happens automatically, and then you have this negative perspective towards all women, just like you see what's happening on my video. I ain't got shit to do with these men's issues, right? That they all bitter, they upset, they angry, they're frustrated, but they take it out on me, and you don't realize that they've created this whole generalization, you know. So instead of them saying, okay, well, the interaction I had with my previous women didn't work out and they were sour, and trying to work through that, they just automatically, all women are this way. All American women are this way. And some of you are saying, okay, some are saying all American women, then some are just be like, all women. All women. They just like, that's the whole extreme, which I'm about to get into next. So that was I think there's a healthy way of going about it. And I think the healthy way is basically for men to kind of take a look into themselves and take some time apart from women and gain a sense of self-worth, and even explore other options dating outside of America, just different cultures, because it's a different experience. So I think that would be a healthy response. That's a healthy segment of, or healthy philosophy of MGTOW. But then there's this unhealthy perspective, philosophy that men are embracing within this MGTOW. I call it a movement. And these are the MGTOW men who are thought this. You know, that's how you can identify it's a negative response. And it's not just an observation that I've made, but it's an observation that some men who embrace healthy perspectives of MGTOW have identified that way. Not all MGTOW men are like this, and that some men have become extreme with it. You know, they have went on the whole far end of the spectrum with it, and they hate women. Instead of taking a step away from women, they've taken it a step further to dish out hate towards women. That's a whole nother level. That's a whole nother degree of MGTOW. where you kind of, especially go out your way. Like, these men are literally going out their way to spread hate towards women. And I have become the object of that hate in the video that I made the other day. And it's not helping them. I mean, maybe they feel better, but how is that helping society? You know, and it's not changing anything, really. You have so much hatred, you know. And like I said, you can identify them because they're like, thought, you a bitch. And then they also have said that they're about pumping and dumping, which is basically using women for sex. Dumping your seed in them and just leaving them hanging. Now, for men who say that they've been dealt the short end of the stick, to have this belief, you can look at it from many different perspectives. You can look at it to say that the chicken is the woman who have hurt men. So the egg is bitter men who now pump and dump. But then y'all know the whole debate about, does the chicken come before the egg or the egg come before the chicken? It can be the other way around, where it becomes really a cycle. So you have men that pump and dump, that leads to a certain response, and women are just like, women ain't gonna accept that, the whole pump and dump. And then it creates this tension between men and women. If you're pumping and dumping, if you see women like they're worthless, like they don't mean anything, and that's your ideology before you even got hurt, somehow you just develop this ideology that women ain't shit, so you mistreat them in a certain kind of way, then no shit, Sherlock. You're like, you think that you're going to get the best end of the stick by mistreating women and have this ideology? Where did this ideology come from, that women ain't shit? That's something to explore. That's something that I think men who have this ideology towards women, oh, you a thought, you a bitch, that's something for, where did you get that from? You know, where does this come from? Is it TV, television? Is it the media that makes you believe that women ain't shit? What is it? Who hurt you? Who hurt you? And you don't have to answer it directly to me. You don't have to. I'm just saying this is something, a thoughtful reflection that you can do in your own time, you know, with your own therapist. You don't have to do this here. I really don't expect men to do this here, but this is just a question that I think is worth reflecting on. Like, who hurt you? Don't sit up here and say, you don't know me. And I think it's easy for men to say, oh, well, you're the reason why I don't like women. Is you the reason why I call women? You can't say that about me because you don't know me. You can say, generally speaking, the society in which we live in, you know, or the social status of women, you know, these privileges that women have that maybe you are opposed to, you know, that has created this idea, but it's calling women thoughts. Why? Why, man? Like, why, you know? And I think for those men, like, it somehow gives them a sense of power. And I'm going to wrap the video up talking about that in a minute. But the other unhealthy expression, you know, within this MGTOW movement, because that's what it is that, or philosophy for you guys who feel more comfortable with calling it philosophy, is that they really assume that they can go create this society without women, and that they will be able to sustain the human race through artificial procreation. That men can have artificial wombs. And I'm gonna let y'all have that conversation down in the comments. But basically, all of this leads to men saying that they no longer need women. And I am checking the time. Ooh, this is a long video. Okay, so that women feel like they no longer need women, right? And they no longer allow women to use of their resources. And I have to address that because that was a kind of a common theme that I noticed from the comments that were left in my video. The reason that they feel like, okay, we felt like we've been disempowered by women, so here's our response. We're going to take our resources back. I find that to be quite interesting, though, considering the reason why you're mad is because women, it's not that women are using up your resources and you're taking it back as a way to gain power. In fact, it's the complete opposite. Women are getting our own resources. Like, I hate to be so blunt, but it's almost as if this is what's happening. Because of the women's rights movement and equality, women have our own shit. So basically, it's a society that has been created where women really don't need necessarily men for the reason that women needed men before, right? Which is to, be the breadwinner, to bring home the bacon. Women are bringing home their own bacon. You will hear women say, "I don't need you." Apparently, they say it not just with words, but with actions when they sign the divorce papers, Now they need your money, and I think that's the reason why men are looking at women as gold diggers. It's like, okay, well, you just use me for my money. You just want the child support payments, but you don't even want me in the house. They feel not needed, essentially. But this whole idea that, we're going to just take back our resources. We're not going to give you this financial support. In fact, we're just not even going to be associated with you at all, period. Somehow that's doing women harm. Essentially, it's going to create a society where men and women are going to just find somehow their own way to live independent, which they've already done, apparently. Women are raising kids by themselves, They somehow find a way to get support from other women who are doing the same thing. And just like men kind of going your own way, and you get the support from other men who experience the same issue as yourself, basically. That's what's happening. And it creates this men versus women society. Now, is this something that is happening to all men and women? No. I feel like this MGTOW and this men going their own way, or women kind of stepping apart doing their thing too, I think that is the minority. I think you guys are the minority. I don't think you're the majority. Now, granted, they say over 50% of marriages end in divorce, right? We have a high divorce rate in America. But it's not to say that people give up, because people just remarry. So I don't think that we've gone necessarily to a society where men and women just are completely apart from each other and they don't want to. No, people fall in love every day. There's still hope. But I do want to address I think the real reason why I think men are going their own way. And they develop this philosophy because men they don't feel needed. They feel rejected. They feel hurt, bitter, and angry, and under that is they feel disempowered. Ultimately, they feel disempowered. And the MGTOW is a way for them to somehow gain their power. I said in my description to my video that after I reflected, by looking at some of the comments, I said I think it sounds like a cry for help. It sounds like a cry for help. And I'm getting ready to close to end this video. But ultimately, it's a cry for help. Men, I just want to give men a hug. I really do. I'm hearing the men, even the angry and the bitter men, and the men who even have led to being disrespectful as a way to express themselves. I just want to, it make me just want to give men a hug, and that's why I apologized at the beginning. I was like, I apologize, and is it women's fault? I don't know if it's women's fault. I don't want to say it's anybody's fault. I just feel like it's just what's happening in our society. It's messed up, and you know, it really it makes me feel sad that men feel that way. You know, I can empathize with men. You know, men feel disempowered. They feel helpless. And when I said that in the beginning that the initial response is that men are in denial, is because y'all been taught that. You kind of perpetuate, for you to deny your feelings of hurt and anger, you're perpetuating what society has already done. The very thing that you guys want to break away from and declare your freedom from, of being put in bondage for so long with these double standard gender roles or expectations that a man has to be strong and he, has to carry the burden of the family. It's just like, it makes sense why you would feel that way. And society for so long has told you that you can't express yourself. You can't hurt. You gotta be strong. You can't be, they look at it like, okay, if you're angry or if you cry, then you're weak. You're not weak. You're very strong. You've been through so much. The burden has been on you. And I think there are women who don't appreciate that. Maybe don't appreciate the contribution that men have made, especially with working so hard, Work is hard. I think it's hard to get up every day, and especially to work a job that you don't like, and to bring home the bacon. There's a meme now on Facebook that say that men, work 9 to 5 and work 40 hours a week. Last thing they want to do is come home to a woman who's argumentative, who's bringing up conflict, want to start fights, They just want to relax. They want to be appreciated. That's the bottom line. They want to be appreciated. But I think a lot of times it goes deeper than a man feeling that his partner doesn't appreciate him. A lot of times it goes way back to their childhood. So when I see these MGTOW men and they're like, oh, women this, and no, women that, we're tired of women. And my first question would be, what was your childhood like? Because it starts there. A lot of times we don't even realize as adults our formulations that we make, our ideologies that we live by are heavily shaped by our childhood and what life was like. Did you feel appreciated as a child? Did you feel invisible as a child? Did you feel loved as a child? I feel like that is the main root of it, and I can see why it's being carried out through your adulthood and why you become this man that you just feel like women should not be entitled to anything, right, from a man. Women don't deserve you. You start hearing a man talk, oh, we don't deserve me. It goes deeper than, a past failed relationship. Because even that failed relationship that you had, the issues that were experienced, are basically manifestations of your experiences growing up as a child. We, a lot of times, undermine that. I can't be y'all therapist. I only can conceptualize this based on my own experiences and based on what I know, what I observe, and put out my perspective on this topic. But from here, you can take this my conceptualization and go and do some introspection. I mean, that's the only way. You only can live with the pain and the hurt and the bitterness for so long. It becomes self-defeating. You start to chip away at your own self. You think that you are helping yourself by attacking other people who ain't got nothing to do with your pain. Like the saying goes, if you don't heal from what hurt you, you bleed on people that did not hurt you, that did not cut you. People ain't got nothing to do with that. But you are carrying this out onto other people that did did not hurt you. And a lot of times that hurt stems way far beyond a failed marriage. It extends way far beyond that. On that note, I'm going to end this video. I thank you guys for watching. I want this to be an interactive discussion. Maybe it can lead to more discussions. I can see that it will lead to more discussions on this topic. I think I pretty much said all I wanted to say in this video. I welcome your perspective as always. And I don't expect my conceptualization to be the solution or to somehow end the anger and the bitterness that men experience, the men are experiencing, you know, and that they live with from day to day, and they're projecting out onto women. Women ain't got nothing to do with their pain. It's just, you know, they've been hurt by one woman, let's say, and then they just continue that, you know, they have this hatred, you know. Same thing with black people, may have been, you know, been hurt. Of course, our ancestors, and even till today, we've been oppressed, you know, by white people. But is it helpful to carry that hatred towards all white people? I mean, what kind of life is that? Or even to generalize that hatred to all people? I can't live like that, you know. So I think it's important to look at things in a certain context. Not necessarily to say, oh, the system is to blame, or capitalism is the blame, you know, or this is that, you know, but just take into context certain different aspects of our society and to see how that shapes women, you know. And women are just as hurt or victimized, as you want, if you want to call it that, as men are, you know, by this system that we have all played a role in, have all played a part in, you know. With that being said, I think that it's helpful for, you know, everybody, I think, can benefit from therapy. I promote that a lot, you know, not just because I'm, you know, training to become a psychologist or I'm a therapist, but because I do see the benefits of therapy, even for myself. I mean, as a PhD student in psychology, we are required to have our own therapy. I've seen the benefits that it has manifested in my own life in going to therapy. Just having a person who's very trained, who's credentialed, who is non-judgmental, and who can listen to what you're going through and help you work through that. You know, just being able to have a mirror held up in front of your face, you know, a psychological mirror, and being reflected back to you, that helps for you to gain insight into yourself, you know, because at the end of the day, we all want to be empowered. And aside from therapy, there are support groups too, therapeutic support groups that I would encourage everyone to go to. And I think that it would be a beautiful thing to have, I think, separate groups. So a MGTOW support group just for men, you know, but even groups that are necessarily non-gender specific, where men and women can come, you know, and surrounding this whole issue about MGTOW and even women's rights and all of that. I think this can be worked out. Not to say it's going to be easy, you know, because we all have our needs, and I think that's what usually will happen in a conversation when you bring in men and women. Everybody just want to put out, well, this is the issue that I have, you know, this is my hurt, this is my pain, and they just very needy, you know, want people to hear what their concern is. But it takes maturity, where you can get to a certain point where, yes, your needs are important, but you can also kind of step outside of yourself and see what does the other gender need, what is the other person's perspective on this topic, and be able to move from there. And that's pretty much it. That's all I had to say, and I've said enough. And I thank you guys for listening. Share this video, comment, and share, and I'm open to hearing what everyone has to say on this topic. And I will catch you guys in the next one. I don't know if this is going to be my last video on MGTOW, but I think I said enough on it. So I'll catch you guys later. Love you guys. Bye.